I'm Kate Dillon from CrateInsider.com, and today I'm in Mark Norris Racing Shop here with Royce Henry and Mark Norris. Royce is the 2018 IMCA Modified Track Champion for Barona Speedway near Lakeside, right outside of San Diego, California. And I wanted to ask these guys, for anyone who's running a modified, what tips would you give if they want to be a little bit more successful with their modified? Share some of your secrets.
Oh man.
Okay, maybe not every secret.
Well, first off,
not the contemporary ones.
I had Mark Norris prep the car all season long, so our worst finish this year was a third. A lot of wins, won basically I think half the races, but he made sure that car finished every single race and gave me a car that I can drive to the front every race. So we had a top 3 every single race all year long, so that pretty much is the reason why we won a championship, is prep. So he prepped the car, set up the car, and made it to where I can do what I do driving, and he's the brains behind it to get me to the front and stay up there.
And with that prep, what are some things that you would suggest? I mean, I do have a lot of guys that are maybe new to racing. So what would you suggest for like a weekly maintenance program?
Well, everybody's got a sheet on what weekly maintenance is, but that's only one thing. But you have to chart what you have. You have to go look at the books. You have to go to the racetrack. You have to talk to the guys, find out what the setup is. I mean, there's so many common setups to start with. So if you're a beginner in IMCA, there's plenty of, information that you can get as a starting setup to run one of these 4-link modifieds. This is an A mod here. So basically you have to have all that information. And then you have to go talk to the fast guys, and you got to bleed them all you can with any tweaking information.
That's why
but you have to stay on top of it. You have to stay on top of it. We made a change from the heat race to the main event in one of the other modifieds that I work on, and it was just, I talked to Royce. As a matter of fact, he's the one that came up with it. He goes, you gotta lower one of the top links down, and then so we lowered the one top link down, and then I went back and it had too much stagger, so we changed the stagger, and the car was really fast in the main event. So just some minor changes in these cars make a huge difference. So the main thing is to be on top of it. Don't take it for granted where your car is. Don't take for granted that it's good enough. Stay on top of it. Make sure everything's right. Once you do that, and you maintain the car, you take it apart, you put it back together, you make sure everything's right, nothing's falling off. But one of the problems with these modifieds is they're so lightweight. They're built with very thin wall tubing. So these things twist unbelievably. So they're constantly, you're chasing these twists, you're looking for small cracks, trying to do what you can do to weld those up or gusset them or make them stronger, so that the car doesn't continue to flex more and more, so you're chasing problems. But other than that, you come up with a basic setup that you like. If you're not fast enough, go find out why. Go ask somebody like Royce. He'd be more than happy to tell you what he thinks. When you're out there running, you run with somebody else, you follow somebody like Royce and you say, well, he's killing me here, he's killing me there. I can keep up with him here, but I can't here. Find out why. Go ask Royce why. Go ask anybody that's competitive, what's happening? Why can't I get off the corner on turn 4? Why can't I do this or do that? But you have to be proactive in these things because the slightest change, some of the street stocks and stuff that we work on, you could do a lot of changes to those and it feels exactly the same. These modifieds, one slight change in a shock or anything else can make you from a loser to a winner.
Wow, and now I know you also race at a couple of different tracks. Do you change your setup from one track to the next, or the track's pretty similar?
Well, Royce and I have different opinions on this. If I have a car,
great, I want to hear them both.
If I have a car that works, I figure that car is going to work anywhere, unless you're going to a super high bank track. Even though the turn's a little longer, let's say you go to Paris, you leave Verona and you go to Paris. I'm like, leave it alone, it works. And Royce has a tendency to make other changes, and he's successful with it. But there's different philosophies about that. But bank tracks are completely different because they cause the entire car to crush, which changes everything. It'll change all the roll steer angles and everything else. But if I have a car that I like at this racetrack, I will go to the other racetrack and run it that way before I make any changes, because you don't know if the changes you made the car not work.
Very true. And I want to hear what Royce has to say.
Well, put it this way, we had a very comfortable setup at the beginning of the season where I know we could run consistently, but I didn't feel like we were the fastest. So consistency got us a lot of wins, but as far as being a rocket fast car everywhere we go, that's what we tried after we got a huge lead in the points this season. We tried doing some off the wall stuff, and I liked a lot of it and didn't like it, and it's just been ups and downs, but we wanted to strive to get faster and faster. So that's what we're still doing, and you can't just stick with one setup. If anybody in this industry knows, you can't, the guys from the 80s and 90s aren't running the same setup as even last year. Guys are trying so many new things that are a lot faster and faster, and the best thing to do is document how you were fast, and if you fell off the pace, if you were consistent, and just document everything, because that's what we do every race. And I document a lot of the racers too. I'm up late every night watching a lot of the guys in the Midwest, and I like actually losing to those guys when they come out and race with us out here on the West Coast, because I learn a lot. I have more fun losing to them and knowing I can get faster than just winning at a local track. It's a lot more fun having those guys beat me, because I know there's a lot left on the table.
Well, and there's a lot of guys with a lot of tracks, and they can race 5 nights a week,
Yep.
if not more. Now, what have you found this year that you have maybe tweaked more? Like, where's your kind of area where you've concentrated some of your efforts on changes?
Well, we had a consistent setup at our local track, and we can go to a couple other tracks in the area where we were consistent, but I didn't feel like we could dominate. And there were a couple cars that would come out and just kind of dominate, and we've tried a whole lot of changes this year to get to that point where we're dominating in a track when we go out there. Because myself as a driver, I feel like I'm maxing out what the car can be capable of, so we got to find areas in the car to improve to get faster.
Is it
So-
shocks though, or is it bars, or
package.
It's
the whole
everything.
package?
It's a package.
If say Holly, my wife, sets the tire pressure a half psi low, I can feel the left front come off the, like on the right rear, I can feel the left front come off the ground a little bit higher. I know it's going to be like that much. So it's every little change. The more a driver can feel in the car and understand a change, the better he's going to be, because he can know where the areas in the car are affected. So documenting everything and having that feel and in-car camera stuff is a huge help, because you can hear when you're on the throttle, off the throttle, your steering angle, everything. That's all things to document to go to the next race and get faster. So if I'm not on the throttle, I want to know why.
Well, I'm going to
So-
tell you, I actually love hearing that. I swear I did not prep them for this at all. We didn't talk about in-car cameras. But for me, my dad was a racer, and I would give anything to see footage from back when he was racing. I mean, the technology just didn't exist back then. And of course, I sell GoPro mounts, and I have GoPros myself. And I mean, I think it's important for your legacy also to document that. It's something your kids are going to want to see, but it's very interesting to hear that, watching that footage yourself, that there's so much you can learn from it.
Put it this way, I've worked at a lot of racing schools across the country, whether it was Ron Fellows, the Bondurant Racing Schools, Skip Barber, and we use in-car camera stuff to coach a driver. So, you know, why are you not on the brakes here? Why are you on the throttle here? And it's all translates over to where you can get faster.
What the hell was that all about? I messed up really bad that time.
But you know, it's like I watch a lot of the drivers too, a lot of the guys that are racing every single night, and I'm watching when they're on the throttle, if they have to get out of it, get back on it, and that to me is telling me how their car's handling. You can pretty much see how a car handles and know a general aspect of kind of what they're running, just how the car's handling. You know when they're upset, because you can see that car hike up, get back out of it, get back on it, and you're like, oh, that guy's not liking that car tonight, because he has to try to rotate the car. So me as a driver instructor for years has kind of seen that, and for me, this modified racing and on dirt I have a lot of respect for a lot of guys that run dirt, just because there's so many aspects to dirt, it's the setup, the track changing, the surface, just everything. So in my opinion, the most talented guys are on dirt in this industry and racing, because it's just, I'm just fascinated with everybody on dirt. It's amazing.
That's fantastic. And I know you also made a switch too in your racing program in the last couple of years, where you used to run an open motor, and now you've switched over to a crate. Obviously, he's talking to Crate Insider, so you know, I just love some of your feedback on what are your thoughts there.
So put it this way, we had an open motor when we bought this car. We bought it, and I was like, oh, it's a really expensive motor, and then I got a great deal on it, so I'm going to run it with it. And we tried changing things to make it so my right foot I didn't have to think about as much, because the more I have to think about that right foot, the more time I'm wasting on focusing how to drive. So we changed valve lash, rocker arm ratios, cams, rotating mass chips,
Gears.
timing, gearing, everything. And we just couldn't get the feel I wanted as a driver out of the car, where I can just nurse it around the track and it's a lot easier. One night on a practice night, there's a guy that's been racing in this area for 30, 40 years, I think, right?
Larry or Mike?
Larry
yeah.
Corning,
Yeah.
Corning Motorsports. I think they almost got a national championship years ago. And he asked me to get in one of his cars at the local track on a Friday night, and I did. And I drove it with a crate, and I did maybe 3 or 4 laps. The car wasn't handling very well, wasn't getting on the right front. But the thing I noticed was it felt like a tractor driving it, and I could just literally torque off the corner and I felt like every hit of every cylinder coming off the corner. I could feel the whole car so much easier in through my right foot with that crate motor. I got out of his car on a practice night. He's like, "How was the car?" I was like, "It's horrible, I'll be back." I went to my trailer, got on the phone, and bought a crate immediately. The very next race, we dropped that crate in. Actually, it took us another race, but the first race we had it in, we checked out. The next race we had it in, we checked out. It just made it that much easier for me to drive a race car where I don't have to think about that aspect of it. So you got to get on a crate.
And then they let you run a spoiler, which doesn't hurt at all.
And the spoiler, and that's one other thing, running a spoiler. If I have somebody take out my left rear quarter panel and the sail panel comes out, I can feel the air come off that spoiler and the car gets dead loose. So it's really crucial to have every little bit of aero downforce on these cars as well, just like an asphalt car. I mean, you got to run a crate and run as much downforce as you can on these things, and that's the key.
That's great. I kind of took a risk. I wasn't really sure what was going to happen with that question, but I'm glad I did. And you got great feedback. Thank you so much for taking the time to take time for this interview, because I think you shared some great knowledge that's going to help some people out. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another video.